Welcome to this demonstration of the GLIMS Lodge Secretary Database web interface. This interface allows a lodge secretary to connect to the Grand Lodge membership data for his lodge and to submit changes to that data, add new membership data, and extract membership data for reports or local tracking needs. In order to access the Lodge Secretary database, the secretary must be recorded as the current secretary for that lodge and must have a unique user ID and password that have been arranged with and administered by the Grand Lodge office staff. Once the secretary has obtained the URL for the Lodge Secretary database web interface and has entered his own user ID and password, he is presented with this screen. Note that a very simple character-based design is used so that secretaries with dial-up internet connections get the best possible performance from the system. In the example shown, this secretary is responsible for more than one lodge, so the secretary can work on either lodge without having to log on and off. From this home screen, when a lodge is selected on it, you see this lodge screen. One of the capabilities on this screen is to be able to search for a member or members and display some basic information about that member. In this example, we will search for all active members whose last name begins with B. Also, you can search by using the full name, the start of name, or anywhere within the name. Doing that search returns the following information about the names that start with B in that lodge. And you see a member number, names, and the join date and lodge status. Note that you can also choose various lodge statuses as a part of the search. So you might be looking for entered apprentices or fellowcraft, for example. If I then click on the member number for an individual, you see the display of the membership information about that member. On this page you see virtually all of the information, including addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, degree dates, all lodge memberships, Masonic events, awards, and lodge officer terms. In addition, you can see several areas that have an orange-yellow background that you can click on to perform various edits. Clicking on the Edit Member Details displays this screen where you can change or add information about the member and then click the Submit button. A change record is then sent to the Grand Lodge office staff to be reviewed and approved, modified, or rejected based on the appropriateness of the change. Returning to the member page, you can also edit postal and electronic addresses by clicking the Edit Addresses, which takes you to a page where you can select what you wish to edit. For example, choosing the home address takes you to another page where you can revise the address information and submit it to the Grand Lodge office for processing. Returning to the address selection page, you will note that if there is existing information, you can edit it, and if there is no information, then the form says Add. To give you a feel for the process, we will add a new personal email for that record. You see there a message that says you have successfully submitted a new personal email for Wendell Bell. This update has been posted to the update table for review by the Grand Lodge staff. And then you have an option to return to various pages. We'll return to the member personal record page. On this page, the third thing that you can do is to do an add transaction. If you click that, it brings up a page that gives you only those Masonic transactions or events. We'll use those two words interchangeably that are appropriate for that member at that moment. In this case, there are only two choices when you select the drop-down: Master Mason Proficiency and Deceased. Note that there are a number of events that are not available on this drop-down list because of Grand Lodge law or procedural requirements, and those available vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. We now return to the Lodge page using the breadcrumbs trail at the top of the page. Note that on this page there are several areas that have the orange-yellow background. Clicking on the Lodge officers takes us to a page that lists the current Lodge officers and displays pertinent information about the officer. You can also click on the member number on this display, and choosing the Tyler of the Lodge takes you to the member display page. This case shows a more complex member with multiple Lodge memberships and extensive officer service. Returning to the Lodge officers list, note that you can choose a term other than the current one and see who the officers of the Lodge were in a specific year. In this case, we will choose 2007. Click the Go button, and there you see the list of the Lodge officers in 2007. Returning to the Lodge page, you also have the ability to add new degree candidates by clicking on the appropriate area. And that brings up a page where a new member can be submitted. Note that the fields that are labeled with the aqua blue text are required information for each new candidate. At least one of the degree event dates needs to be completed, but all three can also be submitted. Note that when this submission is processed by the Grand Lodge staff, a duplicate check is performed, and if the member has already been submitted with one or more of the degree dates, then the submission will be rejected by the Grand Lodge staff. Returning to the Lodge page, the third area that we'd like to look at is View Updates. Clicking the View Updates page takes you to an area where you can review the status of updates that have been submitted for the Lodge. Note that this shows the personal email that we just added and shows it as not processed. The other changes shown have already been processed, and this only shows you updates that have been submitted in the last 90 days, but you can change that default value by changing the date in this text box. We'll change it to 2009 and click Go, and you will see that there are now a host of changes that have been submitted, including the one we just submitted that's not processed. All the rest have been. We'll now return to the Lodge page, but we will switch to a different Grand Lodge to look at the perpetual membership information. Clicking the perpetual area for this lodge brings up a display of the perpetual memberships in that lodge, listing the pertinent information including names, whether the member is deceased, when it was purchased, and what the deposited amount is. Also, there is a summary of the memberships at the bottom of this listing, showing the total number of memberships, the total deceased, and the number living, and the amount of dollars that have been deposited in total. If the secretary wishes, he can download the data in a CSV format by simply clicking on the link that's highlighted, and he can do that to his local PC, where it can be viewed and manipulated in Microsoft Excel or other spreadsheet or database programs. Returning to the Lodge page, you will also see an Edit Lodge Info area. Clicking on that takes you to a form that you can submit selected changes about the Lodge to the Grand Lodge staff. That includes the mailing address, the email, website, and telephone numbers, driving directions, the mealtime, floor school, and Lodge news in general. If you have a dynamic Lodge locator function on the Grand Lodge public website, that information can be updated automatically. Note that the restricted fields on this form generally require a bylaws change and must thus be changed using the proper paperwork and procedures, and cannot be changed here. Returning to the Lodge page and choosing Lodge Officers takes us to a page we saw earlier with the other lodge. But note that we now have a new area that you can click in to submit new Lodge Officers. Clicking that area displays a page that lists all of the Lodge Officer positions and gives you a drop-down list of all of the active members who could be assigned to an officer position. Once the officer positions have been filled, clicking Submit will take you to an address validation form for the members that have been selected, and we'll also check to make sure that the same person has not been submitted for 2 officer positions. Once those validations are completed, the Lodge office information is submitted to the Grand Lodge staff for acceptance. We now return to the Lodge page and switch to a third Grand Lodge to complete our tour of the Lodge Secretary database. For this Grand Lodge, you do see 2 additional orange-yellow areas that can be clicked on. Clicking on the Lodge Reports area takes us to a page that lists the available reports. There are currently 4 reports that can be generated: Good Time, Education and Training Report, Endowments, which are similar to perpetual memberships, and Members. We will choose the Good Time report as an example of what is available. Clicking that link takes us to a page that lets us select several options in creating the report, including the lodge status, the Masons, those with more than a certain amount of time and format. We'll choose Good Time of at least 39 years. We will select the crosstab format. We will ask it to sort Good Time most to least, and then we click the Get Report button. And since we selected the crosstab format, you'll see a working message and then a columnar formatted report showing a column for each service award. Note that you also get a summary report at the bottom of this report that gives you the statistics about what's been generated. This report can also be generated as a CSV file and downloaded to the personal computer of the local secretary, of the lodge secretary, if he so chooses. Returning to the lodge page, another option you can choose is the Forms area. Clicking on that brings up a list of all of the PDF forms that are available and can be completed and printed by the lodge secretary. There is also an administrative function available to the Grand Lodge staff where they can upload new forms or replace existing forms with updated versions. This feature avoids the option of having forms downloaded by anyone from the Grand Lodge website and provides much tighter control on who has access to the forms. Finally, returning to the Lodge page and clicking on the Help area on the breadcrumbs trail, you'll see a new web page that pops up giving you a list of general information topics, questions about how to do various things within the Lodge Secretary database, and these can be expanded. Here you see a description of how you go about downloading. We hope you found this demonstration interesting and would be pleased to discuss our capabilities in more detail. Thank you very much for your time.